Borderlands 4 just had some absolutely massive developer updates. We'll go over things pertaining to the console, the PC, which, yes, it does actually include an FOV slider, and many more things. The devs hint at an upcoming patch, so we'll cover that in detail. We got some new shift codes for you that you can use, an absolute insane warning that you probably should follow, as well as a whole bunch more. What's up, World Utopia here, back in with another video. Today we're checking out all things Borderlands 4. So as I mentioned, there is a ton of stuff to go over here. Let's first jump off of the developer updates, things around performance, FOV sliders, consoles, PCs, whatever platform you're on, there is an update coming. So first off here, let's go over the updates from the man himself, Randy Pitchford, as a lot of this intel and information for upcoming updates is going to come directly from him. This is a massive one and discussed around the entire console community right now. Even on my build videos, people are complaining about this, but people really want an FOV slider on console. Definitely don't blame them here. It looks like the default on console is 75. Absolutely insane there, because on PC it actually defaults to 90, and I currently play at 103. In fact, that's typically around the same FOV that I play for nearly every game. Sometimes 103 can feel too far, sometimes not far enough, so I have to play around 110. But if 103 is my default in this game and what I really enjoy, yeah, I can absolutely not imagine what 75 looks like. That does sound absolutely brutal, so I do hope they figure this one out, which looks like it could be a possibility. We'll go over the update here. Where Randy does go on to say here, quickie for the console players, FOV settings. There are some dreams I have for an FOV setting that might affect fairness. I can't really talk about it yet, but this is important to you, so we're looking at it here. Maybe they're introducing some sort of PvP. He does put up a poll here. I went up and voted for you guys here. For those of you that really want it, I did put them that they should have an FOV slider, or if anything, at least defaulted to 90. 75 is just way too low. But yeah, if you want to vote in this poll here, it does have 28,000. It does only have 4 hours left, unfortunately, so it might not still be up depending on when this video goes live, which might be a little bit later or a little bit after. However, he does have some additional comments here about it. He does say, be aware, you have no idea what the team and I are planning and how it might affect the FOV slider for fairness and such. That said, he's always tried to commit to and prioritize what Borderlands should be versus what it could be turned into. He said his hopes and ambitions are to be additive and not subtractive. So a bit of an update there. Hopefully they do go ahead and enable that FOV slider for console. He does have another update here for console. Again, I'm going to get to the PC section, don't worry. But actually for this one is around motion blur. I've seen a lot of players complain that they have motion blur. Randy does point out here that motion blur is actually not a thing on console. It does not support it, and if you're seeing what seems to be motion blur, you should check your TV settings or whatever automatically is enabled, and that it is not them. Again, I'm not for sure on this one. I don't have a console currently that can play Borderlands. I actually cannot check this one and confirm it. I did recently purchase a used OLED TV as my TV actually broke, and I know that it does have some crazy stuff in there like AI upscaling and even smooth motion, where it will take a lower FPS movie and actually smooth it out to 60 FPS or around 60 FPS. That could be what's happening here. I'm not exactly sure how it works in game mode, so maybe do be wary and watch out for that one. But you guys have to let me know if there is a confirmation on motion blur. I've heard everything here. We even had people tweeting that it has it, some people saying that it doesn't, at least in performance mode. So yeah, not exactly sure what's going on there. Hopefully you guys can adjust that one and let me know in the comments down below. Moving on here though, we have some additional updates. This one pertaining to the actual performance, since we're just kind of highlighting that. I know for a lot of you it's been all over the place. I'll go over some settings. Maybe I even do a settings guide video. We again had this tweet over on Twitter from Randy. He said here, if you're playing Borderlands on PC and want to boost your performance, that Moxie did share some settings tips that he was able to jump from 90 to 160 FPS. A few things in here though I might actually change. I definitely would not put DLSS on performance mode, especially if you have a really good PC. You're just going to degrade your quality of game. I would never recommend lowering your resolution, or at least past quality mode. However, if you need the extra performance boost, you could do so. For me though, DLSS quality is always the baseline, and in my opinion should be for nearly all systems. Especially if you have a newer graphics card, 3000 series and 4000 series, no point to go to performance at all. I would always try to stick with DLSS qualities. That's going to degrade your graphics settings the most out of any setting here. Putting it to performance actually lowers the internal resolution down to 720p, or quality depending on your resolution will keep you at 1080p or even 1440p depending if you're on 4K. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend performance mode, quality mode at least, and then you can lower the other settings. Again, maybe I'll go over a settings guide video here, but that's something I definitely wouldn't recommend. Also, I've seen the notion around frame gen. Some people say it has a terrible amount of latency. Currently, I do believe those players are either doing two things wrong here. One, they're either using AMD FSR, which in my opinion, I do believe is not ready yet after multiple tests with it. It's definitely going to induce way too much latency. If you have NVIDIA though, DLSS FrameGen is fantastic. I even use it in multiplayer games, but here's the kind of discrepancy here. I know a ton of you are going to be like, use it in multiplayer games, why does it feel like bad latency? That's because you need around a minimum of 60 FPS as a baseline before FrameGen. Then you will have very low latency. For me, I try to push it to around 80 to 100 plus FPS as a baseline to where then I enable FrameGen. After that point, you're not going to notice the latency. Currently, I have 17 milliseconds as my latency. Baseline without FrameGen is around 6 to 8 milliseconds latency for frame timings. So yeah, you're not going to notice that type of latency there when you actually have a baseline of 60 plus FPS. At least in my opinion there, you should try to get to at least a baseline FPS of 60. If you have like 30 FPS, 40 FPS, you're going to notice the latency. Again, maybe I go further into settings there, how you can improve your performance, but in my opinion, that's what you should shoot for, and I guarantee if you try it, you probably won't feel the latency at all. However, we do have one more notion here about performance, because I know for some of you, no matter what settings you change, you are having difficulty running the game right now. We actually have an update here on an upcoming patch. So this was in a reply to a negative Steam review, where we do actually have a developer chime in here, BLClapTP, who goes on to say, our team is actively working on patches to improve stability and performance optimizations across a range of systems. They do mention, of course, the input is valuable to them as they prioritize certain fixes, and they do include a link here where you can submit a ticket on your performance issues, or any issues you're having at all, stability-wise, crashes, etc. So what I'll do here is I'll include a link to it down below where you can access this support page. That way, any problems you're having, you can submit it to them, where hopefully they do iron out the performance overall. Again, currently with maxed out or fully maxed out settings, as per performance, I probably should have mentioned this. Currently, nearly maxed settings, I am running at around 120 FPS to 140, depending if I'm inside of a building. That is, yes, with FrameGen, nearly maxed out settings, and that's at 1440p. I do have a pretty decent graphics card, a 4070 Ti Super with a 5600X as my CPU. And actually my CPU is holding me back a little bit there as I am only using 80 to 90% of my GPU. Now speaking of Steam reviews and devs, there actually was one more thing here in a post and article where this does come from IGN, where they said that Borderlands 4 devs at Gearbox are asking PC players to keep playing for at least 15 minutes, and that is after they tweak settings to see how performance is changed. Again, they highlight here that minimum specs will get you 30 FPS at low presets, recommended 60 FPS at medium. I always have hated how game companies have pinned at 30 and 60 FPS. That has been the kind of notion since 2009, basically 2010. We really do need to upgrade this standard here. It should be 120 FPS as the recommended and 60 FPS as the minimum. At least in my opinion there, I really wish game companies would start doing that, as 30 and 60 FPS, especially for a lot of the PC players, just isn't what they want. And that's my opinion there though. Again, I get it as a baseline, but I wish they would have a 120 FPS baseline here. Again though, maybe I go over a settings video how you can achieve very low latency as well as decent performance, hopefully across a broad range of systems. Keep you guys updated on that one. Two more last mentions here. This one is a warning for a specific side quest. It's not really a spoiler there, as it's just the title of the quest, which is called Do Vend on the Line. Essentially, as the post does mention here, you should not do it in co-op currently. This actually does give you a legendary at the end of the side quest. If you're doing it in co-op, the vending machine shuts down after you make a choice, which locks the other players out of the mission in the playthrough. Now, it makes sense for that one playthrough where they could just jump world to other people's games. However, this does actually lock you out of your own mission in your own game. So it's not even just that you can't be in the same party there. It does actually lock you out of this mission when you return to your own world. So do be cautious on that, because this one does give some decent legendaries, or at least you get a choice of one, so this is a really good quest to do, especially even early on. But yeah, do be wary of that one. We do have another post here for some shift codes. People have been putting out a full list of current shift codes that do work. Do be wary, one of these codes actually do currently expire September 30th, so you should redeem it, although again, a lot of people do recommend saving your shift codes. I actually did spend mine, but I'm going to save the other two. But again, those codes are here, and I'll leave the link to the website down below. Overall, that's about cover today's video. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, and until the next one, deuces.